Hello and welcome to this week's Sunday sit-down video. This week I'm going to talk about my top 10 favorite games of my childhood. And I'm defining my childhood from ages 0 to 21. For me, those were years 1981, I was born in 81, and through 2002. That's an arbitrary range, but I just thought it kind of fit for what I wanted to do with this list. And why I'm doing this list, I don't know. It just came to mind the other day that I played some pretty neat games as a child that have defined me as a gamer, as an adult. Some of them are tabletop games. Others are video games. Others don't fit into either of those categories. So if you're only here for tabletop games, you may not enjoy this list. But I do have a number of tabletop games on this list. Some quick honorable mentions are Labyrinth, Millborn, Dragon Dice, and a dinosaur-themed video game that I played when I was like 10 or 11, that was on a computer, like one of the original PCs. So really low graphics, but I just really enjoyed this game. But I didn't put it on the list because I can't remember anything specific about it. Can't even remember the name. But I know it was a dinosaur-themed game, and it was pretty awesome. Okay, and so in no particular order, the first game that I'll mention is an arcade game. So this is back in the days when people went to arcades to play video games. And there were kind of two very similar games that we'd play. And looking back on it, I'm realizing these were cooperative games that we were playing. One was an X-Men themed game, and one was a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles themed game, where everyone would take on a different role, either an X-Man or a Ninja Turtle. And it was one of those side-scrolling games where you would just fight bad guys one by one until you got to the boss, and you would fight that boss, and if you were still alive, you'd continue. And I had so much fun playing these games with my friends. And one of the reasons I remember that I really liked these games, well, two was one, is that I loved that each character had a really powerful superpower that they could use, at least especially in the X-Men game, that they could use once every now and then, but it took a while to recharge and use that power again. I usually played Colossus in the X-Men game because I wasn't really good at button mashing, and so I would just charge up my superpower and get in the middle of all the bad guys and let the big power go off. And it was basically like in a circumference around a certain radius around Colossus, all the bad guys would die or take a bunch of damage. So I really enjoyed that. The other thing I really liked about these games, as I said, I wasn't very good at them. I didn't have a Nintendo when I was little. Like I didn't train like a lot of people did on video games. And so I liked that I could rely on my friends in this cooperative game to use their skills, which were far superior to mine, but I could still have fun. I could still participate, even if I was hanging off to the side or kicking when I should be punching and all that. So I loved the cooperative element of this game, of those two games, which seems to me that they were almost well ahead of their time in those respects. So that's one of them, one of the 10. Again, no particular order here. Another one, let's do a tabletop game so you don't completely lose interest. A game that I played a bunch as a kid. I have a few actually visuals here. I'll mention one that I don't have a visual for. I don't own a copy of Chess now, which I realized. I thought I owned a copy of Chess, but I do not, unless it's hidden away on my shelf somewhere and I'm just not seeing it. But I played chess a lot as a kid. It was one of the first games I learned, and I played it all the time. I played it against my dad. I played it against my brother, my best friend. We played it all the time. And chess, there are many things to love about chess, but I think I really loved that you started at the exact same position as the other player. So you started on even ground. And I loved trying to think ahead and figure out what they might do, what I need to do, and thinking ahead 5-6 turns ahead. It felt just really good to do that in chess. And the design of the game lets you do that. I have a memory of going to a summer camp when I was like, maybe 10 or 11, thinking at the time that I was very good at chess because I was pretty good against everyone that I played against up to that point. And I played someone who had legitimately trained to be very good at chess, like read all the books and whatnot, and I just got destroyed. And so I learned at that point that there was a big difference between just playing chess a lot and actually studying chess, and it made me respect people who actually study these games as a craft. So that's chess. Let's jump to one that's not a board game. Soccer. Soccer was my sport growing up. I played soccer since I was a little kid. I played through high school on we called it a travel team. I don't know what you call it. It was like a special. So there were teams that anyone could join, and then teams you had to try out to join. So I played on one of those teams that you had to try out to join. I also played on my high school team. I didn't play in college because I kind of just wanted to play pickup sports in college and intramural sports. But I played soccer a lot through my childhood. Again, it's essentially it's a team game, also a bit of cooperation in that. But I loved that I could rely on other people, that it wasn't just me out there, that I could use my skills in a way that were an asset to the team and rely on other players who had other skills that were different than mine. And I also just loved the exercise and the camaraderie that came from it. I was a sprinter, so I actually played forward for my high school team because I was really, really fast. And I love playing marking back on, so like usually left or right back because what is the word for foot? Well, you can use either of your feet equally. I'm technically right-footed, but I can use my left foot just as well as I can use my right foot. So I think I usually played left back. And I loved being able to see the whole field from my vantage point and kind of play some long passes, play a role on offense if needed, coming up from left back or right back. But I also really liked marking a specific player because it was fun to do that. I loved marking a specific player and kind of taking them out of the game for a little while. And I love the communication involved, being able to look at the whole field and kind of direct other players to say, hey, make sure you mark that guy. I'll get this guy. I love that aspect of it. Soccer, I still love to play. I don't play as much as I used to, but soccer was my game growing up. Let's see. I mentioned this in last week's video, Magic the Gathering. I started playing Magic when I was around 12 or 13. This was the time when Revised had just come out. For those of you who maybe played Alpha or Beta, or there's one set between Beta and Revised. But Revised was the set that I came in to play. My brother was just old enough. My brother's 5 years younger than me, but he was just old enough to start playing. But I primarily played with friends. And we didn't know what rarities were back then. Like we didn't know what drafting was. We would just buy decks of cards and make cool decks and play against one another. And we had a blast doing it. And I stopped playing for a long time. And then I came back to playing after college when I found out that a friend played. So we played a few drafts in person. We played in person a number of times. And then I kind of moved on to just playing on Magic Online, which I still do whenever a new set comes out. I play a few times on Magic Online, usually just to draft. And there are many great things to say about Magic, but I would say the thing I love the most, other than drafting, because I love the drafting about it, is I love the combos. I love how many clever combos can emerge by playing Magic. Like the game is just built for tens of thousands of unique combos that make you feel clever when you pull them off. And I love that about Magic the Gathering. So that's 4 of the 10 so far. Let's do another video game. When I was in high school, the video game that I played by far the most was Heroes of Might and Magic. I believe 2. I think it was 2, maybe 3, maybe 1. Somewhere between 1 and 3. This was high school. This was like 1995 through 1999, in case you know the actual timeline for Heroes of Might and Magic. And there were 2 really cool things about this game. So you kind of played in 2 different ways. One is you controlled a character who was walking around a map, and you could see how far, like on your turn, it was turn-based, which I'll get back to that in a second. On your turn, you could move your character as far as you wanted, based on their actual range, and you'd either pick up stuff, or you'd have little encounters, or you'd have battles. And I loved that both in that aspect of the game and in the battles themselves, that they were turn-based, that you could... Actually, I don't know if the battles were turn-based. I won't say that, because I'm not sure if the battles were turn-based. I think maybe you just set up your characters and they fought. But I loved that the game itself was turn-based, because I really did not like real-time games. I just couldn't keep up with players who played a lot of real-time games. I liked having the time to think about what I wanted to do in my turn. And that has carried over to me as an adult, where I really like games where I have plenty of time to do what I want on my turn. I love turn-based Euro games, where I can do what I want and then move on to the next player and kind of plan ahead for my next turn as other players are going. So I loved that about Heroes of Might and Magic, that unlike some of the other real-time strategy games at the time, I had time to just take my turn, do whatever I wanted, and then pass the turn. Let's do another board game. Risk was one of the games that I played the most as a childhood. This is actually my childhood Risk box, so you can see it's coming apart. This is an old copy of Risk. I love the map in this game. It was a beautiful map, just beautifully created. I love this game. I loved. I don't know. I know it's in terms of modern game design, it isn't. It has player elimination. You can be out of the game, out of a 3-hour game in the first few minutes. I had a terrible experience playing this with a girlfriend at one point, but overall, I really love playing Risk. We played it at family reunions. I played it with friends, and I think my favorite thing was kind of turtling in this game. Like I loved choosing continents based on how many soldiers you would get at the beginning of your turn if you controlled the continent, or at the end of the turn. I'm forgetting when you actually get the workers, get the soldiers. But I loved controlling key points where other players could not get into my continent if I controlled those key points really well. There was just something very satisfying about that, about like only having to put one soldier on the other territories and putting a lot on those entry points. I really, really like that. And the modern version, obviously, is Risk Legacy, which is one of my favorite gaming experiences ever. So if you liked Risk as a childhood and you'd like to take it to the next level, I highly, highly recommend Risk Legacy. I think it's still, I still think it might be my favorite Legacy game just because of the way it started the genre, and it just did a great job at starting you off with the things that you know about Risk and adding new things along the way. Okay, let's do a non-board game. So I just did one. Oh, I actually had a prop for soccer. My cleats. And I'll use these in one other way because there's one other game that I played a lot of more in, I played this at summer camps, a little bit of high school, and a lot in college, and that is Ultimate Frisbee. It's another sport that's kind of like soccer in that you just run around a lot for a long period of time. But in Ultimate, what do I love about Ultimate? I don't know. I just had a lot of fun playing Ultimate. So Ultimate Frisbee, I don't know if I'm sure you've heard of it, but you're throwing a frisbee around trying to score goals essentially in end zones, kind of like in football. You're trying to catch the frisbee in the end zone. Again, I was very fast, and so I loved being the guy that someone would just send me. But I was also pretty good at handling the disc, and so I enjoyed that aspect as well. I don't even know if I have a favorite element of it. I think, actually, I'll say this. I liked the flow of the game in Ultimate Frisbee. Actually, there's one other thing too. So one, I like the flow of the game. That's great. I love that the game you just go. Like there's no stopping all the time like in football. As much as nice as it is to get a break in football. In soccer does have that flow. You just play until you have a goal and until you have halftime. But Ultimate is very similar. You just play on and on and on until you score, and then you throw it back to the other team and you start over again. The other thing I really like about Ultimate is that there are no refs. You actually call fouls on yourself. So there's a level of accountability and sportsmanship that really I don't think is surpassed by really any other game. And so I love that about Ultimate, that you are accountable for being a fair player on the pitch. I really, really like that about Ultimate. Another game that I played a lot in college was Hearts. I have a deck of cards as a prop for Hearts. And Hearts, I've talked about this on the channel a little bit. So Hearts is a game where you are trying to get a certain number of points. I think it's 400 points. It's been a while since I played. But the thing I love about Hearts is the prospect of shooting the moon, which is where you get all the hearts. Normally, you're not trying to get hearts in this game. But in shooting the moon, you get all of the hearts. And if you do that, you get a ton of points for accomplishing that difficult task. So it's something that it keeps the game in balance because you want to give other players hearts, but you don't want to give all those hearts to the same player, because if you do, they run the risk of shooting the moon, and it gives any player a shot at really catching up throughout the game because they have that prospect of shooting the moon. And tied to that also, at the beginning of every round of Hearts, you give some of your cards to other players, and so you're communicating something to the other players about what you're going to try to do this round. And I really like that communication, especially if you are signaling that you might be shooting the moon. Or you might signal to someone that you are thinking about shooting the moon, and it might deter them from giving you hearts early in the round. So yeah, I really, really enjoyed playing Hearts. I need to get it back to the table because it's a wonderful game that I haven't played in a long, long time. Let's do one more video game. This is another college game. And I think this is the last video game. Yeah, and that is Mario Kart 64. We played this a ton in college, especially senior year. Like pretty much every day after we got back from class, we would play 4 games of Mario Kart 64. I think my favorite was the island course. I really, really love the island course. I love the catch-up mechanism in Mario Kart 64. I like how it kind of tethers you and prevents players from getting too far ahead, but it also generally means that the more skilled players will still win, despite the catch-up mechanisms that other players have. I love one thing I really love at the courses are the shortcuts. And this is something that I don't know I've seen in other racing games. As much as I love Camel Up, I love Downforce, they don't really have shortcuts that you can choose to take. Actually, Downforce does have some little shortcuts, but the thing I love about the shortcuts in Mario Kart is that the game doesn't broadcast them to you. They're a little bit secret, and sometimes there's a pretty good chance that you won't pull it off. Like if you're trying to jump through the waterfall cavern in Mario Kart 64 in the island race, the Rainbow Road shortcut that you have to hit it at just the right moment, just the right speed. So I like that there are shortcuts that are not consistent, that you have to be skilled in order, you have to know about them, you have to discover them, and you have to be skilled enough to actually pull them off. I really, really like that. That's Mario Kart 64. I think I have, maybe just one more game left. Let's see, I did X-Men, Soccer Film. The last game is a game that has made its way onto my top 10 list of all-time games that I still love to get to the table, and that is Scotland Yard. I love how easy it is to get this game to the table. It's super easy to teach to new players. It's also a team game or one versus many game, so you can just start playing and the team can just explain to that new player how to play. I love that. Very accessible. I also love how mischievous Mr. X in this game, or Mrs. X, whatever your gender is, gets to be. You get to feel so sneaky and clever as you are trying to outmaneuver the other players that are trying to find you. I love how streamlined this game is. Really, it is super, super simple, but it is so much fun every time I play. That is Scotland Yard. And so if this were a top 10 list, I would probably put this at the top 10, at the top of the list, because it is a wonderful game that I still love getting back to the table. I think that's all 10. If I miss one, let me know. And they're probably childhood games that I'm just not thinking of right now that maybe I did play that I did love and I just forgot for this list because it has been a while now. I'm 38, so it's been a while since I had these years 0 through 21. I'd love to hear about your favorite games from your childhood and maybe how that's impacted you as a modern gamer today. And if there are any of those games that you would still gladly play if someone said, "Hey, let's play chess or let's play soccer or Scotland Yard or Magic." I'd love to hear your thoughts on that. Your favorite games from your childhood, years 0 to 21. Let me know. That's it. Thanks for joining me today on today's Sunday Sit Down video. And next week, I'll probably be talking about Geekway Mini, a little convention that I'll be attending in a few days, where I'll hopefully play a lot of new to me games, and I will talk about them on next week's video. I'll see you then. Take care.